Welcome back to LMX, where we break down the big issues that affect our economy. Today we're looking ahead to Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's 2025 budget speech. Although the speech hasn't been delivered yet, we've gathered insights and fact-checked predictions from top sources. We'll cover where the government's money comes from, what needs to change for economic growth, and whether current social grant increases are enough given rising inflation. Let's dive in. First, let's talk about government revenue. The budget is primarily funded through three main channels: taxes. These include personal income tax, corporate tax, and value-added tax. Reuters reports that tax revenue remains the backbone of the government's finances, even as challenges like declining fuel levy and import VAT collections emerge. Borrowing. When tax collections fall short, the government turns to borrowing, which increases national debt. Recent projections suggest the deficit is expected to widen, something investors and economists are watching closely. Non-tax revenues. This includes dividends from state-owned enterprises and other forms of income, although these streams can be less predictable. Understanding these revenue sources is crucial. They not only dictate how much money the government has to spend, but also highlight where pressure points exist, especially as fiscal consolidation measures struggle to keep up with rising expenditures. While taxes form the largest slice of the budget pie, mounting deficits indicate that borrowing is becoming a more frequent tool, a trend that could have long-term implications for economic stability. Next up, boosting economic growth. The president's recent SONA and analyst commentaries highlight several areas that the finance minister will likely need to address. Infrastructure investment, upgrading roads, rail, energy networks, and water systems is critical. A Reuters report points to plans for attracting more private investment into infrastructure, moving away from a solely public-funded model. This means expect discussions around innovative financing and public-private partnerships. Support for small and medium enterprises. As the backbone of our economy, SMMEs need targeted relief measures and reforms. The DA's expectations emphasize that no new tax hikes should burden these businesses, while the government creates incentives for private sector job growth. Fiscal and regulatory reforms. Reducing red tape and revising fiscal rules are also likely on the agenda. Investors are hopeful that clear, structured reforms can restore business confidence and drive sustainable growth. Ultimately, the budget needs to strike a balance between fiscal responsibility and enabling growth. With forecasts showing deficits at around 5% of GDP and debt stabilizing at roughly 75% of GDP, the minister will have a challenging job ahead. These reforms aren't just numbers on a slide, they directly impact job creation, the stability of our public services, and ultimately, your daily life. Now let's shift our focus to social grants. Every year, millions of South Africans rely on these grants for their basic needs. But a pressing question remains: are these increases enough to keep up with inflation? Recent reports from IOL and Daily Maverick suggest that while the government has approved modest increases in social grants, often in the range of 20 to 30 rand, the pace of inflation, especially in essential areas like the food basket, outstrips these adjustments. For example, one analysis noted that while the cost of a typical food basket has risen significantly, by over 24 rand in some cases, grant increases have only been about 10 to 20 rand. This gap means that the real purchasing power of beneficiaries could actually decline over time. Civil society groups and economists are urging the government to align social grant increases more closely with the rising cost of living. With inflation running at around 5 to 6% per annum, the current adjustments may not be sufficient to cover the gap in essential expenses. While the budget speech may not provide all the answers, it will likely address these disparities. The hope is that more substantial measures, or at least a clear roadmap for future increases, will be outlined to ensure that our most vulnerable populations are not left behind. To sum up, here are the key takeaways as we await the budget speech. Revenue sources. Taxes, borrowing, and non-tax revenues are the primary sources. But challenges in collection and rising borrowing highlight fiscal vulnerabilities. Economic growth. Expect a strong focus on infrastructure, support for SMMEs, and regulatory reforms to stimulate growth and restore investor confidence. Social grants. While increases have been approved, many argue they don't keep pace with inflation, impacting the everyday lives of millions. Finance Minister Godongwana has a tough balancing act ahead, between stimulating growth, managing debt, and ensuring social protection for the vulnerable. As citizens and investors, it's important for us to ask, are these measures enough to propel us toward a more prosperous future? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please hit the like button, subscribe to LMX, and click the bell icon so you won't miss our live updates once the speech is delivered. Thanks for watching, and stay informed.